Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where we discover the communities that are making a difference in the lives of others. Our self-discovery is something we are all making on our life's journey. Here you will find the people that will be your guidance, that will be your inspiration, that will be there for you in support on your journey of life. Do enjoy. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Raising Your Gifted Children right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guests are Ed Peisner. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes, you are.
Mark Beckerman, and they've got a fantastic subject here today. They have an organization, the Organization for Social Media Safety, which unfortunately was born out of tragedy. We're going to hear that story today, but they fight for every day to protect families from the dangers linked to social media. You know, social media is a wonderful gift, but if misused, like anything, it can be very, very detrimental on so many levels. The organization is a nonprofit. It's a consumer protection organization focused exclusively on social media through the advocacy, education, and technology development, OFSMS, projects against all social media related dangers, including cyberbullying, hate speech, sexual harassment, and human trafficking. And I know you probably think, what's that got to do with social media? One hell of a lot. So please do pay attention today. Mark serves as the CEO of the organization for social media safety and is a prominent national consumer protection organization and has taught social media skills to thousands of students, parents, and educators across the country, and developed essential social media safety legislation like Jordan's Law, the nation's first law to deter social media motivated violence. And he's previously served over a decade as a senior advisor to the Member of Congress and California State Assembly. And I unfortunately do not have in front of me Ed's bio. But Ed, let's start off with you. Tell us a little bit about you so we have got everybody represented here.
You got it. I'll dig in. I'll just jump right in for you. A little bit about me. I've been in the business for over 30 years, so that's about my acumen in business. I'm a dad. I'm a parent, and that's where I will begin. 4 years ago, my son Jordan, he was 14 and a half years old at the time. He was walking home from school. He called me like every typical Friday and said, "I'm walking home. I'm going to stop and pick up some food with my friends at the local restaurant. I'm going to walk to the park and maybe go skateboarding, and then I'll see you at home." I said, "Not a problem." I was home with my then 10-year-old daughter. Um, I got a phone call about 20 some odd minutes later from one of Jordan's friends. They said, "Mr. Peisner, somebody punched Jordan." That's it. "We're down here at the place. Somebody punched him." So I told my daughter, "I'll be back in a few minutes." I grabbed an ice pack and I hopped in my car and I went down to pick up Jordan, thinking bloody nose at the best,
Right.
at the worst. And what I came upon was like I've said this a million times, a scene from a movie. I saw an ambulance, a police car, just a group of kids, and I knew something was wrong. Obviously, I ran over to the ambulance, and there was my son on a gurney, his clothes covered in blood. His eyes were rolled back. I had no idea what had happened. I asked the paramedic what's going on. They said, "We need to take him now to the ER, the local ER. He's bleeding in the brain. That's all we could tell you. Get out of the ambulance, follow us there." And I get chills every time. I, went over towards my car, but as I was walking towards my car, I'm like getting through these kids that were all around, and I asked some of them, "What the hell happened? Explain, like, what happened?" And then they pull out their phone and they said, "Oh, look," and they show me a video, and it's my son talking to his friend, and then you see this guy walk up behind him and just strike him as hard as he can in the head. You see Jordan's hat fly off. He hits the ground. The sound is, I can't listen to the sound anymore.
No.
It just stops me in my tracks. And I recorded that with my phone. I preserved that, so I had it. And I went to the hospital. Jordan was airlifted by helicopter to Children's Hospital, Los Angeles, where they could treat the injury. He spent 6 days in the hospital with his swelling brain. We We're talking about surgeries and cutting the skull open and drilling holes to relieve pressure and all the things you never want to talk to,
No.
you never want to hear as a parent. We opted to go with what they said. We could leave the hematoma that's swelling in. If it stops, if it slowly absorbs, it could take months for the swelling to go down, but surgery has other consequences. So we just left it in, and he spent months recovering. He is, still with me today, thankfully.
Blessing.
Big blessing. He's different. His personality is definitely different. He had some learning issues afterwards, and typical brain injury related outcome. He had hearing loss because his eardrum was ruptured. Just the list goes on. But thankfully, I'm able to hold him and hug him every night and say hi to him. I love him. Out of that was born the Organization for Social Media Safety. After I got home, I knew I needed to do something. Like, why are these kids looking at this video of my son? And I was on news stations and interviewing. And I contacted my local assembly member to ask him, what could we do? Like, what could we do? And his chief of staff, who I met at the time, was Mark Berkman. Mm-hmm. So Mark and I connected at that moment. Consequently, Mark, I got out of the hospital. He got out of the hospital 6 days later. So maybe within that week, I contacted Mark and the assembly member's office. Mark saw the video within 2 hours of it happening. That's that viral nature of things happening on social media. So that's sort of the why, the spark. I'm going to let Mark tell you, because from there we did a lot in a short amount of time. I'll let Mark sort of take it from there.
So Mark, you really got on board with this immediately. What was it about it that really kind of, I've got to do something?
Yeah, so the attack is horrifying to watch, and
and by the way, was the attack purely to be filmed so that they could put it on social media? Was it that the basis of it?
So what we know of the attack is that the attacker's associate filmed it, and it went on social media. So we don't have enough evidence in terms of motivation, but what I'll say we were aware of in the office is that this wasn't really an isolated incident. We had an immediate sense that this was part of a large and growing problem. And so we did our research, and we found that what we've come to term as social media motivated violence. And that's attacks committed for the purpose of filming them and putting them up on social media to get notoriety, to get the likes, the shares, the views. We found starting in 2006, you had about 4 to 6 of these attacks, which were then called part of the knockout game, where someone would try to walk up behind someone and knock them out, film it, and put it on social media. So a few of those in 2006, to the point where you get to 2016, when this attack on Jordan happened, you had hundreds and thousands of these videos being viewed by millions and millions, mostly young people. They were just so easy to find. We charted them out. So really exponential doubling of growth year to year. And unfortunately, you could still find them today. There's still hundreds and thousands of them out there. And so we drafted what came to be known as Jordan's Law, which, as you mentioned in the opening, it's the nation's first law to deter social media motivated violence. And we passed that in California in less than a year, which shows that there was a clear awareness that this legislation was needed. Unfortunately, while we were working on Jordan's Law, it became very clear to Ed and me that there was no other organization serving as a consumer protection organization focused on social media, despite the fact you had this violence problem, but you also had cyberbullying. Everyone knew that cyberbullying on social media was growing exponentially. I had been working for years in and with the foster youth sector. Human trafficking via social media was exploding there. We were coming out of the election in 2016. Propaganda and misinformation on social media was a big piece of the presidential election, as we were learning. Hate speech, particularly during the presidential election as well. Millions of tweets in 2016 were sent out that were racist, anti-Semitic, misogynistic. And so all of these problems were happening. No one was protecting consumers against them, with a focus on expertise in social media. So we started the Organization for Social Media Safety.
So needed. I have done so many stories, so many shows where the cyberbullying has, resulted in a suicide, or murder, or, just somebody's life feeling like it's completely over. I had somebody I was going to interview the other day, and she postponed because her 15-year-old tried to commit suicide because of cyberbullying. And we've put this is one of the things that we talk about so many on our shows, is that, again, anything in the wrong hands, a car, a knife and fork, social media, anything misused with the wrong intent can cause harm. Now, social media is a brilliant platform because it has allowed people to connect. It's allowed people to open up to people around the world. Absolutely fantastic. But there is always that element of misuse. And how many people, we see it in the mass shootings, that 5 minutes of glory, and they want to film it, or they want to see themselves all over social media. And as you said, the last president loved it. Didn't matter how controversial it was, take away social media and voila. How do we teach the consciousness to the people that this is wrong? As you said, few cases in 2016, and then where we are in 21, I know that a lot of the social media platforms now, any form of violence or anything like this, they take away, but it's still very hard to monitor. And then, of course, you talk about the sex trade, and sex trafficking. Again, done numerous shows on that, which is eye-opened, and how they use social media to entice people in. And it's like, oh my God, what kind of human beings are we? But the sad thing about social media, it's hiding behind the camera. It's hiding behind. There's no accountability. Nobody's having to face their supposed enemy, their opponent. So it's really cowardly, incredibly cowardly. But why has it gained so much popularity? Is there no conscience in these people, or do they really get caught up in the hysteria of so many likes and so much attention? Who wants to answer that one?
I mean, so our job as kind of the forefront of expertise globally in social media safety is picking out those dynamics and learning about them and how we can best combat them. And so, I mean, you mentioned a few different dynamics there: the lack of empathy and remorse, which impacts cyberbullying, the perpetration of a number of different crimes, because you have a screen in front of you, right? Yeah. And there's this feeling of anonymity, and you're not able to understand and see the feelings of someone else. So that plays into cyberbullying and harassment and hate speech. Obviously, the abilities that so-called professional human traffickers have through social media, and understanding how those work. We take a classic consumer protection approach. So we do, again, as you mentioned at the top, we have three different departments, and those working together are how we're going to advance towards safer social media. So that's advocacy work. So making sure that our public policies are keeping pace with the changes we're seeing in social media, because thus far they have not been. So we're working on that. Technology development. So making sure that we have third-party apps that are providing real-time protection against any and all of these dangers, social media related dangers. And then education, which is a big piece, working in conjunction with the other two, raising awareness among the public, and particularly our youth, among the various dangers, because not all of these are clear, or most of them are not even very well understood by adults, let alone our students, and teaching how to most appropriately either respond to these dangers when children come across them, or avoid them altogether. So those three working together are essential.
When you had the schoolyard bully, right, okay, they caught you around the corner, but there was at least a little accountability, although sometimes not straight away. As I said, the cyberbullying is the coward's way out, because they're posting it. And it kind of really makes you question, I have a whole series going to be going out called the Forgotten Children series. And it is about raising our children, and where we're going wrong. You know, why have we got so many incarcerated? Why is 70% of our foster children in incarceration? You know, take children away from their parents. How about we help the parents be parents? You know, the neighborhoods that they're in, and place value and importance on our children right at the beginning, you know, right from the time of conception, and not wait for them to be dysfunctional and then know what to do with it. So there's so much that we really have to look at right now, that we've leaped so far ahead in technology, but the consciousness seems to be so far behind. And I don't understand these people who do this, and they're on camera. The cops have got you on camera now. You've committed a crime, and yet you're still out there bragging about it and sharing it on social media. Are you that dumb? You know, that's really the question. I mean, Ed, you must have asked that one.
Yeah, I did. I did. I mean, again, for me, I was more taken back as to how could a child film another child get injured like that? Like, be aware of it. By the way, it wasn't an accidental filming. This person stood back there watching the person
and posted it, so it was intent.
And then share it. And then the other people, you know, becoming a mark. You know, we talk about this. These digital bystanders, where they're just looking into this world, and then they swipe past it and moving on to the next one. So it's that lack of empathy, that lack of remorse that has been, you know, exacerbated by social media.
Yeah, and it hasn't helped in the last 4 years of so much hate mongering going on, because it gave permission. It gave permission to people well, he could do it, we could do it. And really, quite honestly, no one could do it. Nobody is above the accountability of it. But I want to talk about the sex trade. Again, I've done a few shows that have opened up my eyes and just been horrific. What was it, a few years ago, I think 2016, I had somebody on the air, and she was saying that the sex industry around the world, and this is sex trafficking and sex trade and everything, was $150 billion a year trade. And I'm sure that's just conservative now. You know, the numbers must be much higher. And it's like, well, if it's that such higher trade, why are we not looking at the root of the problem? Why is there such a need for this trade? And for it to go in the deep, dark web and be so underground and have professionals entice people on through social media, it's a sickness that we need to not just look at the surface, but deep dive. Mark, you must have seen this.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's on the deep dark web. It's operating out in the open on social media. It's operating on other social sites that we're all aware of too. So it's not hidden. And what social media has done is, 15 years ago, traffickers were confined to specific geographic areas, really. And social media has allowed their reach really to be national and global, and they could target children anywhere, and they do, and they're targeting them on platforms, gaming platforms like Fortnite that we consider social media. Going after kids, they pose as another 14 or 15-year-old, build up a relationship, groom them, and then get them to meet them somewhere where the children are abducted.
And it doesn't matter how much you say to your children, don't go. And I don't know what it is in the fishhook of these people, but they manage to bring people in. Like one of the stories that one woman who works in this trade, she was saying a rich girl complaining that a mum wouldn't let her have her ears pierced, and a guy around it said, hey, my friend will do it for free. Right? And they're either taking them because they can get a high market for them, or it's for, gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, to get money for them. It does. Everybody thinks it's just the runaways or the drug addicts or the children that are left at home all the time. No, they hit everybody. Everybody, and they have an agenda and a price tag on everyone. And what they're kind of trained to hitting the weakness of the child, right?
Yes. No, they have algorithms that search for kids that have put vulnerabilities up into the world of social media, so they can target those children and build relationships. The one thing I would counter though is that it does matter how many times you say don't do that, or don't meet with people you don't know on social media. The repetition. So there, and this is a good point, good time to get into our macro level, our bird's eye view of what we recommend to parents. And that's thinking about 3 different activities when it comes to social media safety. When you let your child into the world of social media, that's 1, the conversations that you should be having with your child. So defining these dangers, including trafficking, that there are bad people on social media that want to get you alone to take advantage in some way or abduct. And then 2, setting your social media safety rules. So put them in writing, put them in a public place, make sure that they're clear of what you want your child to do in specific circumstances every time, what you want them to do every time they're using social media. And then calibrating the settings on your devices and apps to the most appropriate safety level for your child. So for a lot of children, that means maximizing the privacy settings, making sure that people they don't know can't communicate with them on platforms like Fortnite. And so those 3 together are going to have a big effect in terms of keeping your child safe from dangers like trafficking. And trafficking, which is the worst case scenario, is really one of the easiest ones to prevent by following some very simple guidelines.
Yeah, it's also kind of when walking home, right? Don't walk singularly, walk in numbers. And if somebody says they've lost their dog and they've got a white van, run. Make a lot of noise, right?
Exactly. Same concepts though. When we grew up, those were the points that our parents really instilled in us over and over again when we went to the mall or something. Now imagine your kid is going to the mall for 6 or 7 hours a day, where each of the stores is a trafficker, a drug dealer, someone who's hurling hate speech. So the dangers have increased. The amount of time that our children are exposed to those dangers has increased. So our need to take a comprehensive approach to safety is so much more important.
Now, what happens to, the high school kid who's being filmed innocently doing something, or someone's beating them up or teasing them or flip their skirt, whatever. I mean, my daughter was horribly bullied at school, and this was not, phones didn't have the cameras and things on it at that time, but I mean, it certainly left a scar. Then they go and post it on social media, and they feel mortified. They feel so embarrassed. And you see it an awful lot with getting girls or guys drunk, raping them and putting it up there. There's been a few suicides attached to that. It's like they may have taken all their precautions, on their own side, but how do they protect themselves from that? And where is the accountability? I mean, do the police have accountability if they see someone on that camera? Can they go after them? I mean, what's the recourse there?
So in terms of accountability, it depends on the facts of each specific circumstance, what jurisdiction you're in, what state you're in. In terms of protecting your child, if they're a victim in that way of being filmed while someone is harassing or committing some other crime, there's only so much as parents we can do within with our specific children, our specific family unit. That's why the Organization for Social Media Safety exists. As I mentioned, it's our 3 departments. It's making sure that we're keeping public policy at a level where we're going to deter a lot of these this type of activity, this type of behavior, that we're putting pressure on social media platforms, which we're doing now in big ways, to make sure that they're making their platforms as safe as possible, that they're removing unsafe content as quickly as possible, which very few of them are doing right now. And tech development. So we work with software companies like Bark that can enhance safety. It's a third-party safety software tool that can enhance safety for children that parents can choose to use. So it's all of those pieces working together.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just kids, is it? You've gotten social media, you've got awful, cyberbullying again, hiding behind the camera or hiding behind the computer or the phone, and just the slander, the things that you wouldn't say to someone's face to face because you don't have the guts, right? But you get out there and you see such hate rhetoric. And you see this so much on social media. And, I keep telling everybody, everything is an algorithm. We're an algorithm. If you don't respond to it and you don't feed it, they're not being fed, they're not going to grow. So don't respond to it. Just delete the message. If I see something hateful like that, I delete it because it's not a part of my algorithm and I'm not going to tolerate it. We can do that. But it's a little that we can do, but we have to be very, very mindful, because even sarcasm, your sarcasm may be something that I'm British. We have a lot of sarcasm, right? And it can be
Dry sarcasm's okay.
Yeah. Well, it depends on who's reading it and listening to it. But, and we're in very much a state right now of political correctness, with Black Lives Matter, with Women's Lives Matters, with All Lives Matters. We're in that phase at the present moment of, what do I say? Am I okay to say it? And a lot of people are kind of in a new verbiage. And it's like, let us not condemn those people if they do say something out of sorts, rather educate them and correct them. But the last thing we need is a pile of hate on them. And social media, as I said, can be fantastic, but the hate rhetoric is something that is so damning, not just to children, but to everyone. You must have seen this, Ed, afterwards. I mean, you probably had an awful lot of people come forward with sympathy and support, but did you have any negative reaction as well?
Yeah, Mark knows. I could tell by the look on his face. We did a lot of interviews on a lot of different news stations, TV shows. I did have a lot of support. The papers wrote about the story. Because we were so connected to Mark's office, we got a lot of publicity here locally and nationally. So there was a lot of support, parents supporting, but there was a lot of hate. And
Why?
it shocked me.
Yeah.
It shocked me to my core, some of the things people could say about my son, who could have died.
Yes.
He was an innocent. He was just standing there talking to somebody, and someone punched him. They cracked his skull. I mean, he had a fracture in his skull. And there were things like, your son can't take a punch. And I was just... I think it was Mark or somebody in his office, somebody said, don't ever read the comments.
No.
Don't go there. And it's because they have the ability to just type anything, hiding behind a camera, the digital warrior there, the keyboard coward, and they could say anything they want. And it means nothing to them. There's no remorse. There's no connection. They just move on. So yeah, I saw it all.
Yeah. It's kind of hard, isn't it? Because no matter what security you come up with today, there's somebody, some sort of either hacker or other person that's looking their way around it. And so that cybersecurity is constantly, you can't sit and be complacent on any day, can you? Because, you've got somebody else that's coming up that's going to break that code and find their way in. And it means that it needs to be updated all the time. You're constantly looking at ways to upgrade, because it has become such a pandemic of its own. And, being around the pandemic, with so many people having so much time on their hands and then getting frustrated and then angry. And we're seeing right now, out there in public, like on buses and on trains and things like this, on planes, people picking fights, and it's like, there are healthier ways to get rid of your frustration than anger. But I think we're in that little anger phase right now, where people who don't know how to use, spend it or release it, they're using their anger on other people. Have you seen an increase through the pandemic of more bullying and, more cyber anything that's negative? Mark?
Yeah, well, what's terrifying is that we're in a bit of a statistical black hole right now coming out of the pandemic. And so we are concerned that across the board, we are going to see verified increases in all the dangers that we work with, from cyberbullying to trafficking to hate speech. Initial studies do show, and they're very preliminary, but do show a significant increase. One company did a study on and found a 70% increase during the pandemic in cyberbullying. And so you hit the nail on the head in the sense that we have all been cooped up for a year plus. particularly our children, our teens, and our tweens have not been practicing their social skills as much as they would have. So now everyone's going to be released back into society in a sense, or back into school. And we're going to see that play out over and confronted with all these issues that we haven't dealt with for a year plus. And we're going to see that play out in social media. And we're already starting to see preliminary evidence of it. We're concerned it's going to be a longer lasting phenomena here, and we're dealing with an increased risk on multiple fronts.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because we already know there was already a problem with, you know, the phones and the kids being on it all the time, but now they actually can get out amongst their friends and talk and hang out and play. They're on their phones. They don't know how to communicate with each other than through their phones. And it's like, this is serious, folks. This is serious. These are the people that are going to rule your country, rule the world down the road. Never mind the sex trafficking or the bullying or the anything else, or the hate mongering and the violence on there. We've got that detachment going on through cyber, through social media of everything is 140 characters, or a few moments of hate or something like that, and it's like people have forgotten how to communicate, how to converse. And this in itself, I think, is a problem.
And there are some studies that show correlations that bear that out in terms of mental health too. We found, or one study found that teens that are on social media for 5 hours a day are 70% more likely to have suicidal thoughts or take suicidal action as compared to those on social media for an hour a day. So there's some really disturbing correlations out there. And obviously the theories are pretty clear as to why. I mean, if your child is on social media for 5+ hours a day, they're not engaging in normal social interaction. They're swapping out healthy activities. And Ed talks about this a lot when he goes to schools across the country. There's a reality distortion effect where we are seeing edited photos and curated photos and just everyone's successes or best 5 seconds at an otherwise boring party. And it's distorting everyone's view of what reality actually is.
Yeah. Yes. Ed, you can talk about that. It is an illusion that they're living, right? And we already have so much disillusionment out there that this is the last thing that we need. And, again, I use social media. It's been great supporter for me, but it is what I put out is what I expect to get back, right? When you've also got so many people, well, I've got 5,000 likes. Well, I've got 10,000 likes. I'm more popular than you. And it's like comparison. And that comparison could be so deadly, because it immediately makes a person feel less than. And this is what that competitiveness is going on social media, or everybody trying to one up each other or get more likes or get more attention. And is that because they're lacking it at home, or is it because social media has got their claws into them and they just don't know how to break free? Ed?
Yeah. Listen, they don't know how to break free. And it's because social media is addictive.
Yes.
Right? It is addictive. The social media companies have used some of the smartest brains in the industry and MRI machines to look into the brains, to look at what creates these little bursts of dopamine, to program their apps to deliver that burst of dopamine, just like you get from drugs or alcohol or smoking.
Yeah, it's an addiction.
Addictive.
Yeah.
Like pulling the slot machine handle, you feel that little burst, so you need to go back for more. They do it in the apps, and our children are addicted. They are addicted to these apps. They don't realize they are, but they are. We know they are.
Yes.
And we have to fight that addiction. We have to help them. You said something. I was in an interview this morning, and you reminded me of what I said. Somebody said, "Well, what about when you upgrade the phone?" I said, "Listen, everybody's all about upgrading phones. Every 2 years, you got to upgrade the phone.
Yeah.
Upgrade the phone. Upgrade. Try upgrading your parenting lesson plan for your kids every 2 years. Maybe upgrade the conversations you have with them. Upgrade the rules you're setting with them. Instead of upgrading the phone every 2 years, maybe we should go back and upgrade how we parent our kids." Life has changed since these smartphones have come into our lives. You cannot parent the same way anymore. You have to make a change. Our kids are addicted to this. So we have to help them break free of that. We have to do our job as parents.
Yeah.
But it's new to us. Mark says this too, and it's new to us. This is brand new. It started in 2006 or 7, Mark. I think it was a for real mass introduction of the
6.
smartphone. 6,
Facebook, smartphone.
right? This is brand new,
Yeah.
and our kids are just they're pawns. You know, their
Well,
time is monetized.
it's like the stuff they put in cigarettes, you know, to make people addictive. And it's, you know, marketing is always geared at hitting that addictive nature in you. I've got to have it. I've got to have it. I've got to have it. And, you know, now what you're seeing on social media is where you didn't used to see it before. Now it's become a shop. And, you know, the moment they see you look at something, next thing you know, you have a blast of that thing on, you know, from everybody. And it's like, here you're wanting to kind of follow some interesting conversations and things like this. And it's, you know, one sales pitch after another. And it's lost its sociability in being a social platform and become a marketing platform. And so now you've got the other side of things with kids and parents feel they've got to have it. They feel they've got to have it. You know, it speaks to me. I've got to buy it. I've got to buy it. And so now you're running into that other problem right there. And I don't know how you manage to keep up, Mark, because, you know, every single day there is a new thing on social media that you've got to tackle, you know, in bringing awareness or, you know, with the algorithms or anything else, because it's become an affront and in our faces. And malls are closing. I want them to go back to the malls with their friends, you know, hang out, have an ice cream, do a bit of shopping, have some fun, get off the damn phone, get off the social media, right? Have that conversation. But how do you keep up with it, Mark?
Well, we keep up because we've very, very carefully constructed and planned an infrastructure that allows us to get ahead of or be at the same pace as these changes and understand the dynamics and how in the commonalities between the different dangers that are present on social media. And then everything that we do programmatically also brings education experience back into our organization that then we use to bolster our programming and our understanding. So when we are advocating, we're working with the CEOs of the top companies and the top legislatures and the top technologists. When we are educating, we are working with students and parents across the country and getting grassroots understanding at major levels. And we're able to collect a significant amount of anonymous data that allows us to stay at the forefront of what kids are doing. And then when we work on tech development, we're able to better understand how third-party companies are solving these problems technologically and what issues the social media companies are putting up to block efforts. So it's everything that we've designed to put together to help us stay at the forefront of these issues.
Social media is not going away. And as I said, it has its good parts. It's a question of how it's used. To say I'm not going to be on social media and I ban my kids from it altogether is unrealistic, because they'll go and get on it with their friends, right? It's as with anything with children, it's teaching them the art of safety, right? And if you teach them right from the word go, you know, yes, I want to see who this person is that you've just friended. I actually will not friend anyone. You know, we get plenty of it every day. I go to their about. I look at their pictures, and if it's all about them and there's nothing in the about, I know that it's a hacked account or false image, right? And I'm not going to friend them at all. I want to see some content about you. I want to see what you're about before I'm going to press any like or connection there. And I think that's something we could teach our kids. Don't just carte blanche and eat everything on the smorgasbord. You know, be discerning of whom you're going to be talking to. We're not going to get social media away. It's there in the future, but how we can use it, and for them to actually understand there is a responsibility on how they use it. And we're seeing babies holding phones. You know, there's a video of a kid where mom takes the phone away from the kid and it has a complete conniption. And it's like
addicted
already, right? And they've already proven that very, very young children in front of the screen, it's extremely bad for them, for their brain waves and development and everything else. So again, as you said, the time period that they're on it, what age do they start? Question who it is they're friending, and maybe you as a parent can have a look at that person? Is it somebody appropriate? And there is no going to meet anyone. And if somebody does live around the corner, then we get the parents together with the kid, right? So it is putting a lot of onus on the parents. And this is a new form of, I used to take my pram and walk it up and down the street or go on my bicycle. And, our safety of being snatched was so little back in those days. And now we want to keep our eyes on the kids in the backyard or the front yard in case someone comes to get them. We're living in that kind of world. And so the best defense we can do is teach our children to be aware of it, to listen to the hairs on the back of their neck, and also what to put out and also what to receive. And if we teach them that very young, then we're not going to have so many kids being hooked in by the illusion of it. But I think the real education starts with the parents, doesn't it? Teaching the parents how to navigate this.
Well, that's a wonderful segue into letting your listeners know about our free course for parents on our website, which, as far as we know, is the only resource out there like it, which is a comprehensive lesson plan for parents on the 3 activities that I mentioned earlier. What conversations to have with your child around social media safety. And we have a full checklist for parents there as well. What rules to set. We've got a full template there, and then a tutorial on how to set those settings. So what we realized when we started this work is that, as we mentioned a few times during this conversation, that social media was new. Parents didn't know how to keep their children safe on social media. And so that led to hunting and pecking around the internet for a tip here, a tip there, or relying on the parent rumor mill. And so we realized that we needed a system for parents. When you go and you take a flight, your pilot has a checklist organized by the foremost experts from, research and experience, and they go through that checklist one by one before you fly to make sure that your flight is safe. So we did the same thing here. We put everything together in one place as a system for parents. And that's what we need, because as you just mentioned, there's so many dangers out there when it comes to social media. They're serious. Some of them are actually quite common. Parents need to take these steps to protect their children on social media. As you also mentioned, for a lot of families and a lot of communities, it's not really an option to hold your child back from certain apps if every single person in their grade, in their class, is going to be using these platforms, because it's how they're building friendships and relationships. And there's a real social trade-off there if you're going to withhold the app that each parent needs to confront, making this often a lose-lose for parents.
Yeah. And I think it's also which social medias you put them on. Like TikTok, I'm not on it, but it seems to be one of these things that people are goofy and dance and this and that, and it looks innocent enough, although everything can have its cynicism behind it. But if your kids want to go on, Instagram, I mean, that's what it is. Instant gratification. There is no long-term building of anything. For me, I use Facebook and LinkedIn because you can actually have conversations there. And it's like, with your kid, which one do you allow them to go on first? And make sure you know what that social media is representing and how to navigate it, because we are the custodians of our children. And I know there's a great deal of pressure on parents today, a lot more than there was back in the day, with the cyber, with everything online. Now we've got everything that you have to buy everything through your phone, right? So, now kids have the phone, they have the bank account on that, they lose their phone, it just, the weight of this responsibility is a lot. So the more help that parents can get in navigating this is like, I just don't know what to do. Well, you've got a program there. Step 1, 2, 3, and 4. When you empower the parents, they can empower the kids to make better decisions, right? Instead of the kids being overloaded with every social media out there, empower the kids. You can go on this one. This is how you're going to use it. I will be monitoring. And, that way, the kids respect the fact that mom and dad are looking out for them, although at the time it's like, Mom and Dad, you're trying to take my freedom away from me. We've all been through that, right? But we need that today. It's sad we need it. It's sad we need it, but this isn't going away. It's going to be there until Armageddon and all the power. This is something I never understand in all the Armageddon movies. All the power goes out in the world and everybody's just living off the land. If they're all that bright, why can't they rebuild it and put the lights back on and put the energy back on? I never understand that. You did it once before, why can't you do it again? So anyway, but I think that's also another thing that on social media has to be responsible for, is the content of how much joy and possibility you go out there and entice with your kid, and less the doom and gloom and the conspiracy theories, because that can make a kid look at, well, what is there a future for me if this is the world? So, it's not just your younger kids, it's right up to your older kids too. It's teach them well, have conversations with them, conversations about the social media. Did you meet someone today? Who are they? What do they know? What did you converse about? Have a conversation with your kid. How many parents don't do that? So how's Jordan doing now, Ed?
He's different. It's a hard, he's going to be 19 this year. Yeah, he's going to be 19 this year. It changed his direction.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fork in the road, an unexpected fork in the road that, will he ever get back to the path he was on originally? I don't know. Might not ever. This might be a new fork and we just have to deal with it. It's one day at a time right now, just with his personality, everything that's changed. So, I have heard stories like Jordan's where the child didn't survive. So I feel I'm blessed that I get to hug him and hear "I love you, Dad" and all those things, and celebrate Father's Day and birthdays. And I'm blessed.
Yeah,
I'm blessed.
Someone took away the future that he had for himself, but he can define the future he wants for himself now.
Yes, and I've told him not to let this incident define him.
Yes.
This cannot be his defining moment. It will not be.
There's always a catalyst because of what happened to him, which is awful. But without that happening to him, would Mark be doing what he's doing? And would you be saving lives of other children?
Correct.
And other people out there? I remember seeing a video, which still haunts me today, of a young woman, and she's throwing something in the water and someone's filming her. And I realized she's throwing in puppies.
Oh.
And I looked at that, and she was about 15. And I thought, how can you do that and film it? Where is there a heart in there? You can't have any, that heart had to be so closed off to do that. And this is what I'm finding a lot today with our youth. They're so jaded. They're too scared to open up their heart. They're too scared of the judgment and the ridicule and the shame and the blame that social media brings about, that they're finding it really, really hard to embrace their own self-discovery and be themselves. And this has to change. We have to change that algorithm altogether. And it does come from that education, and it does come from that support, and it does come from government and organizations that are going to stay on top of this, because it's not every 2 years that you're going to upgrade. It's every 2 minutes, isn't it, Mark?
Yep.
Where do you see it going? Where would you like to see it going?
Well, in terms of our organization, I mean, we are proud of how quickly we've been able to have a massive impact and grow programmatically. Starting this coming school year, we will be in up to 75% of the school districts across the country. So our educational content is going to be getting out to thousands and thousands of students and parents as well. And so that's fantastic. We have been able to pass several serious pieces of legislation. We're working on some important initiatives right now. And we're making sure, one of those initiatives actually is connected to our work in technology development. So we're working on an initiative to make sure that all social media platforms give parents access to third-party social safety software, because some platforms like Snap and like TikTok block that access right now. And that's decreasing the amount of safety that we could have. So again, all of this working together, the big goal, the big vision is to make social media safe for everyone. And we do truly, sincerely believe that we can get there, that we can eliminate most, if not all, of these dangers that we're seeing on social media. It is possible.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're working towards every day.
Now, of course, some people would say, well, that is, repression, freedom of speech, and this and that. No, your freedom of speech is not warranted anywhere on any public surface if it is one that's in hate rhetoric. We're not, I don't think there's freedom of violence. Sorry, I don't agree with that at all. And if we have to monitor and restrain, and I don't understand why every social media platform that comes up shouldn't adhere to the rules and the regulations of social media and the monetization of bullying and of hate speech and everything like that, because that should be part of their licensing that has to be accountable for. So I hope that you get all social medias under that platform. 75% is a great deal in such a short period of time. I mean, look at gun reform. It's no further forward. And it doesn't matter how many people a year die. The love affair with guns is just overwhelming. But the fact that you've got so much done in such a short period of time, and this education is in 75% of the schools and available to all parents, is kudos to both of you for doing it, because it's needed. It's needed. We can't say no to the social media, but what we can say, there are some conditions, and you need to learn the rules and the regulations of it, and the awareness. If they're feeling uncomfortable, mom and dad, I'm feeling uncomfortable. This person asked me this question, right? And we can intervene as parents. So kudos to you for doing that. And parents want the children to have the freedom of being expression. They're on their phones. They know their kids are going to be on their phones. But that safety of knowing they've taught them that safety and that those safe measures are in place is that peace of mind where kids can socially interact. But they mustn't forget how to actually physically social interact, because that is, as I said, is a little pandemic of its own right now, a crisis of its own, where kids are not knowing how to speak with one another. What is the organization? How do people get hold of you? How do they get hold of the programs?
Sure. So it's Organization for Social Media Safety. You can find us on the web at ofsms.org. That's, of course, short for Organization for Social Media Safety. So ofsms.org. On there, you can, like I mentioned, you could find our free parent course, the Buckling the Social Media Seatbelt course, where we give comprehensive education into all the tips and what to do to keep your child safe. And then you can also find our school-based services. So how you can get our school to come teach your students, do a parent workshop, and we also do consultations with schools around their social media safety policies as well. So that's all available on the website, and you can find our email there and our phone number as well.
What age should a child start on social media?
So we get that question, I would say almost every day. It would be so much easier for us if we had a straight answer. The
driving license and the drinking thing. This is the age, right? Social media, that's the age. Yeah.
The problem is that every social media app is different. Every community is different. Every child's developmental level is different. So we can't give an age. There's a lot of your listeners may have heard of Wait Till 8, the initiative to get everyone to wait till 8th grade for social media. We think the reason that it really didn't catch on or succeed is because of the full range of apps out there that the kids are using, from YouTube to Fortnite and Roblox, TikTok. Kids are on it 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. So there's a range of apps there, and each parent's going to have to confront that question. We would recommend, the education when your child wants a new app is not difficult. You go onto Google and just Google in TikTok safety, and you can get plenty of information in terms of what's on various apps, and you can look at our website as well and make an informed decision. Obviously, we would like to see later as opposed to sooner. For most of these apps, kids are on platforms like Snap far too early.
Yeah.
One of the things that we do when we talked about this problem, it's this race to the bottom problem essentially with social media platforms. So one kid in the 6th grade gets on Snap, or the 5th grade gets on Snap, and pretty soon we see the rest of the kids in the grade because of this social trade-off.
Yeah.
One of the things that we do when we do these school consultations is we set up community guidelines for the parents that are voluntary in almost every circumstance, where we set up age of entry onto the various specific platforms so everyone's on the same page, and we're kind of eliminating this trade-off that parents are facing. So that's one of our most effective interventions there. Unfortunately, that requires the school to get involved and do it, and parents can't do that individually.
Right. Hey, parents can put the pressure on the schools.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. They can contribute individually,
Yes,
of course.
absolutely. I was a volunteer at the school. We can have volunteer parents up there, right, helping with the program. There's always a solution, folks. You're never saying we can't. There is always we can. It's just how, right? That's the important thing. Be proactive. And I know many parents are working, and it's very hard for them. But you know what? Just form a community of other parents, share the responsibility, and be there for each other. It takes a village to raise your kids, and we need to get back to the village, most certainly. And I think also that we really need to hold in check the permission that seems to have gone out there in the last few years to hate, to condemn, to belittle, to tear someone apart for their own gain. And, once January of this year came about, there was a big sigh of relief because it was back to boring politics instead of the hate rhetoric. And we do have to hold our leaders accountable. And that means parents, you're accountable too. You're setting the example for your children. Brothers and sisters, you've got younger brothers and sisters there. Mind what you say, mind what you do. They look up to you. So, if everybody could step into their accountability, then we would see less of this. Is it going away? Not until humanity rises up and becomes better people, which is all up to each and every one of us. Ed, thank you for, taking that tragedy and putting it into something productive, making a difference. As I said, what's happened to Jordan, and his life will be different, but it will still be meaningful.
Yeah.
And what it's propelled here, and how many other children it's helped and saved, and the system that had to be put into place. So, so many parents would just be angry. I don't know what happened to the kid who did it. Did he get caught?
Yeah, he's a minor. He was a minor, so we can't really discuss the outcome of anything that happened. But yeah.
Well, I hope there was accountability there, because if not, then they just think they can do it again. And we have to be responsible for our actions, every single one of us as human beings. And we've got flaws. We're flawsome. We're going to say and do things in the moment that we wish we hadn't done or wish we had known better. But the more we support each other let's just step up into kindness. Let's step up into kindness and be kind to one another. It doesn't mean you have to be mushy and syrupy. Just be bloody kind, folks, and stop bashing each other, because pulling somebody else down to put yourself up is a sign of weakness.
Exactly.
It is not a sign of strength. So thank you so much, guys. This is very impactful.
Thanks for having us.
I know it's going to go out and hit a lot of people that are needing to know this. And I want to see you up to 100 in America. And I want to see this program go around the world. It's needed in every school system, but I think it's needed in every parent's house, because this social media platform is all consuming and changing every moment. How do we know how to navigate it? So by giving us the tools and the skills how to do it, it's taking one burden off our shoulders, and it's also helping us look at our children and know what to look out for. So it's a great gift that you're giving back to parents. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
And once again, the site is ofsms.org. All right, folks, please reach out to them. They're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Yes, they're on social media themselves, using the platform properly and responsibly. Let's get this out there. If you know a parent, please send them this show. Everybody needs to know about it. Everybody needs to get in that, even if your children are older. It doesn't matter. And you know somebody with younger children, and you know some teenager that's going through hell right now because of social media. Step up and help the parents. But do you know about this program? Do you know about this? I'm there for you. The worst thing you can do is turn your cheek the other way. Step up. Let's all be responsible as a community. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Take care, Sarah.
Until next time, folks. Bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. You will hear many, many shows here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. We have new shows for you out every week. Just find them on our podcast or What's New. If you feel that you have something to share that makes a difference in the lives of others, or you too feel that you could be a host, please contact me at info@selfdiscoverymedia.com and we will be glad to speak with you. Have a wonderful day.